If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome to the show tonight. We got a great show tonight. It's a show we're doing on a serious note. My name is Charlotte. I'm your hostess for the next hour. And this is California Haunts Radio. We are the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, www.californiahaunts.org. And everybody who knows me knows that I'm a real journalist in my real life. So I like to mix it up here on the show and take on some newsworthy topics. And this is something... Tonight's topic is something that's near and dear to my heart. When I was in my 20s, early 20s, I had two cousins, two brothers. One was a very successful naval aviator. The other one went through college, did some sailboat stuff, worked in a bank. They lived in Oregon. And my naval aviator cousin, we were all about the same age. The naval aviator was about 2 years older than I was, or 3 years older than I was at the time. And the younger one was a year older. And anyhow, the naval aviator was doing time in the Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm. So he was patrolling the Persian Gulf in an anti-submarine helicopter. So 2 days before Thanksgiving, my dad gets a phone call from Oregon, from my cousins, and it was the mother of the two boys. And because it was, it was the holidays, I thought it was a holiday call, so I went ahead, picked up the extension, and was on the other end of the line. And before we even said hello, my cousin said, my son is dead. And my first thought was, well, he probably got shot down. Something happened. And to my utter shock, she said, no, it's my other son. And I thought, well, and the first thing you think is what happened. I'm thinking car accident, something like that. And she went on to tell us that my Navy cousin had gone to pick him up so they could all meet for an early dinner. And the house was messy. The place where he was living was messy. They didn't know that he had lost his job. And my cousin offered to take him shopping and buy clothes so they could go to dinner. He laughed and said, yeah, sure, why not? Went into the bathroom, shut the door. And my cousin said that right a couple minutes after that, he heard a shotgun go off. Went running into the bathroom, and my cousin had put the gun in his mouth and taken his own life. I've spent 35 years coming to terms. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about him. And what had gone wrong, how nobody knew that he was in that type of mental state to do that. And like I said, not a day goes by. That's why I wanted to get this gentleman on. He's written a book about his life before and after the suicide of his brother. And so I thought it was an important topic to have on the show. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring him in and he can tell you his story. Hello.
Hi, Charlotte. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you, Carl?
I'm well, thank you, and appreciate you having me on.
Sure, no problem. Tell me a little bit about you. I did do some research online, so I know a little bit about your story, but my listeners don't.
I am a third generation fine art dealer, originally from Philadelphia, and we are now working in Florida as well. We specialize in American and European 17th through 21st century paintings, drawings, watercolors, and occasional sculpture. Um, I am not sure what else there is about me that you want to know. I've got a great family, a fabulous wife, kids, granddaughter, and daughter-in-law, and I've just been very blessed and very lucky. Had a few bumps in the road along the way, obviously, and it's one of the things we're here to talk about tonight.
Yes, yes. So tell me about you. You lost your father.
I lost my father uh, in 1973. Had lost a brother to suicide when I was 16, only 8 years prior. And, that's both of those things rocked my life. Uh, my mom lived to be 94,
Mm-hmm.
and my father wasn't so lucky. He was 58. And the shock of losing a son, was just too much for him to bear.
Tell me, I know it's painful for you, but can you tell me about what was going on with your brother, or how that came to be?
It was a real shock. We had no signs, no forebearing of what was coming. Uh, he he seemed to be very happy and you know overtly active and friendly, great social life. And one night, he just didn't come home. He was at night school at Temple University, and we thought that was really out of character. So the next morning, there was a malaise in the house, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to go to school. And of course, I had to go to school, and I was a senior in high school. And I went to school, and I'm in the auditorium at the assembly, and I get called up to the stage. There's been an emergency. Um, well, I needed to go home. So fortunately, they didn't tell me what it was. But when I got home, and I had driven to school that day, I was 16. Um, my other brother, my eldest brother, told me that Bruce had killed himself, and it's like my whole world went dark in an instant
Mm-hmm.
because not coming home the night before, we figured, well, maybe he was out with friends, or maybe there was a car accident. When I heard there was an emergency,
Right.
no clue, nothing at all. I didn't see this coming at all, and neither did my parents or my other brother.
And how did he do it? Can I ask?
Sure. He hanged himself, actually, on the fourth floor of the gallery, a family business.
Wow. Wow. I'm so
And
sorry.
thanks, thanks. Yeah, my father was the one who found him.
Wow. That's incredible. What I know it's a shock. It's a real shock when that happens because it happens so suddenly. What happened? I mean, a lot of people don't realize too, like your book that you wrote, the after effects when this happens. I mean, it affects everybody in the family.
It does, and families can either pull together or pull apart. And the initial reaction is shock, and then anger, and then the question mark as to why. What happened? Why didn't we see something? Um, and then you feel guilt, and
Mm-hmm.
then you try to come to peace with it, which takes a professional intervention. It's too big a monster to deal with on your own. As much as you think you can, you can't.
It's like yeah, and I agree with you 100%. It's really hard on the families. It's like there's a lot of things about suicide where people say that the person that commits suicide is just being selfish, but it's not all that either. I mean, they're obviously having some type of problem that they need help with, but the families don't, because the closest people to them don't see it because they can put on a good front in front of the
Right.
family members.
That's correct. I mean, you never know really what's going on in someone's head, what their demons are, and what might be something that they don't want to talk about, feel ashamed about, or just are overwhelmed with and can't deal with it.
So what
So
happened with you guys? Can you tell me that the progression of what
we
happened afterwards?
well, once my mom had just gotten out of the hospital with major surgery,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we try to deal with it as best we could. But I had my parents had clergy that they leaned on for help, and my brother had counseling, and I had the benefit of a psychoanalysis, which saved my life. I mean, I didn't think I needed it, and when the doctor told me that I was a great candidate for psychoanalysis, I figured, oh my God, I must be really sick. Woody Allen's been doing this for 15 years, and he's still at it. So, but then I realized, he said, you have to be intelligent, you have to be analytical, and said you're really a good candidate for this. And thank God I did it, because it gave me perspective. It helped me to cope, basically, and to deal with it.
Did you blame yourself at all?
Only in the sense that I didn't see anything, that maybe I missed something, but
Mm-hmm.
no one saw anything. I mean, you really, it's human nature to blame yourself for something like that, for failure to have interceded somehow. But you can't if you don't see it coming. You don't see any, no signs, nothing at all. So it's, the guilt is there initially, but then you work through it and you realize that um, th- it's not you. It was something that was beyond your control.
And your whole family went through this, right? I mean, everybody was going through this process.
Absolutely. Our immediate family, our aunts and uncles, cousins, everybody. It's an impact that spreads everywhere.
Mm. I understand. Believe me, I do understand.
And I'm sorry for
So,
your losses as well.
thank you, thank you. There's like I said in the intro. There's still days that I sit here and wonder. What could have done, what could have been done to prevent it, or you wonder if the person was still alive, what they could be.
Right.
What they could have become in their life. But to have, I can't imagine becoming that despondent to be able to have the guts to take my own life. I just
Yeah,
can't. So whatever he was going through was something that's beyond what I could think about
I
at the
agree.
time. So tell me what happened. As you grew older, because of course your father died, and so you had to take over the art business, correct?
Right. My brother stayed with me for what he said was going to be 9 months, but it turned out to be 9 years. But in that first year, I came out swinging and learned a business as best I could and ran it. And, I knew I had to do that because with the impending leaving, my brother leaving the business, I
Mm-hmm.
would have been on my own completely. So I was like Michael Corleone. I came out and ran the business in a year, and it was tough. It was very difficult, but I was grateful to my brother for the time that he did spend there and for what he taught me.
Mm-hmm. So then oh look, everybody does that. You get on with your life, even though you got these background thoughts. It's always going to be with you. So you got married, had children of your own, right?
Right, correct, and I've been very blessed and grateful for all of that. This is it's a scar that stays with you. It's emblematic of who you are, and it's what you do with it afterward
Mm-hmm.
that makes a big difference. And I decided to write this book, which took decades because I would write it, put it down, too painful, come back to it. My wife would tell me, if it's too painful, don't do it. And I'd say, no, I need to do it. This is something I want to leave as a legacy for our kids. And, ultimately use it as a tool to pay it forward by taking my darkest days and doing something to help someone else, hopefully prevent someone from taking their life or help a family who's been through it so that they have a sense of that there is help for them and there is a way through this. Not that it's easy, it's not, but it's a battle, and it stays with you. And it was an obligation that I felt that I had, something I really wanted to do. And my our kids would never know my brother or my father,
Mm-hmm.
so this was a way of kind of um, sharing their lives with them.
And when you talk about working to get through it, what do you mean?
Well, when and there was another point in the book where my wife would say to me, "You're intellectualizing. I'm not feeling it, and your readers aren't going to feel it. So if it's too hard or you can't be genuine with your feelings and let them through, you're wasting your time." And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that she was right. And then I decided to just open up and let my feelings through. And then it became three dimensional. I knew it had been flat before that because I was kind of emotionless writing
Mm-hmm.
the book because it was painful. And then I had an editor who helped me, and I looked for a long time to get a publisher, and everybody said, no, it's too personal. We don't want to touch this. I kept thinking, of course it's too personal. This was the whole point. So they gave me an editor who, in this one publishing house, who got it, and she said, we want you to show it, not tell it. We want you to rewrite it movie style. Well, I heard movie and I got excited. And I said, what do you mean show it, not tell it? She said, we want dialogue. So they went back and rewrote the whole book with dialogue after the editor who showed me how to do it. She didn't tell me, and she was great. So then it came to life. I mean, the characters were such in the book that people said, I feel like I know too much about your family, or I feel like I missed something, or I feel like I'm part of your family. I mean, it really became a work alive, and it had impact. So I knew that it would reach people and would help people. So that was the thing I had to work myself through over a period of years to
Mm-hmm.
get through it, to get to that point where I could actually do it.
In a lot of ways, like me being a journalist and all, that's how I express myself, is by writing. So when I go through a real hard period in my life, that's something I'll do is just sit down at the computer and just start writing away because it's medicinal because you get that you get that energy out.
It's cathartic.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
definitely is. You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
I've been doing these interviews, radio, television, and journal interviews since the end of '08 when the book originally came out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're tough. I mean, it takes you back to day one, the ground zero. But if it doesn't, then it's not really you. I'm not going to get to your audience if I don't show my feelings or express the depth of what I've gone through and what I'm feeling, even now.
Right. Absolutely. I agree 100%. So did your family have any qualms about you writing the book at all? Because like you say, you essentially wrote it about your experiences.
Well, my dad, my brother were gone. My mom got to see the book, and she was thrilled, and she thought it was terrific. My wife thought it was great. The kids were very young at that point, but everybody who's read it, it's very complimentary to me. I don't have much of an ego.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, "You sure, really, was it that good?" I'll go back and read a chapter here and there after all these years, and I look at it and say, "Did I write that? Wow, that's really good." So, um, I could not put a composition together in high school to save my life, but this was
Wow.
after losing my brother, and I didn't really care. I was not aiming academically at all. I just didn't care until I had something to say.
And how long did it take you to write it?
About 10 years, maybe longer,
Okay.
decade
Nothing
and a
wrong with
half.
that. There's nothing wrong with that. No.
Could have been 20 years actually. It took so long because I would start to write it and I couldn't. I'd have to put it down. But honestly, if I had kept at it at that point, I probably would not have had to rewrite it because it was full of emotion. But then I just let it go. You can only do what you can do when it's time.
Absolutely. So your goal is to help people. Are you on any kind of suicide hotlines or anything, talking to people or anything like that, or is it just
No,
mainly through the book and doing talks like this?
yep, exactly. I don't have a suicide hotline or anything, but my ears are always open. And if someone's in need, I'm there to listen or to help
Mm-hmm.
or guide somebody. If I see somebody in distress, I do whatever I could to influence them to live their life instead of losing it.
If somebody comes to you, like you say, you try to influence them to live their life instead of losing it. What's the first piece of advice you give them, or the help, or the helping hand?
Well, to get help if they're having a problem, because I'm not a professional counselor or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't have those credentials. I have the experience of having lived through it and survived it, which is big,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But I'll tell people that there's help for them out there. They're not alone. There's love for them, and that they need to seek help to try and get through this, not to try and do it on their own.
For you as a teenager, how old were you when this happened?
16.
Wow, you were just going through your coming into
Yep.
adulthood stuff. So
Yep.
how, and all those emotions that go with that. So how did that, what kind of emotions were you having after it, with this? I mean, it must have caused a
Um,
lot of stress on you.
It did. I mean, obviously grief and then anger, and then guilt, and then confusion and anxiety. I was riddled with anxiety, and my parents were heads up enough to notice and got me professional help. And the psychiatrist that they were very close to and friendly with couldn't treat me because he was too close to our family. But he
Right.
recommended a great doctor um, who was just incredible and really helped me learn how to cope. Because you never get over it. You only learn to live with it as best you
Right.
can.
Right. But at that young age for you, that was especially like I said, at 16, you're just going through your changes where you're not quite an adult yet,
I
but
definitely was not an adult yet. Right.
you're a couple years away, and then this happens, and it's a lot
Yeah,
of emotion to go through.
it is. It is. Changes your life in an instant.
Did you lose the desire to go to school and stuff like that? Because I know people that have gone through trauma like that just don't want to even function.
Well, I did initially. I mean, for a couple of weeks, I was home. We're Jewish, and we did a shiva where after 3 or 4 days, but I couldn't go back to school for a couple of weeks. And when I went back, I felt like all the eyes were on me, like, hey, that's the kid whose brother killed himself, and I would hear these voices, and I didn't know whether those murmurs were real or if they
Hmm.
were in my head. It didn't really matter for me; they were real. The judgment, which is something you have no right to exert on someone or their family. Someone who's taken their life. You can't say, well, he shouldn't have done that, and he was this or that. You have no right to do that. Judgment is the worst thing you can do. Um, just it's not right.
And the other thing too, I would think, because I was a caregiver for my both elderly parents too, is that after stuff like that happens or the death happens, you have those thoughts: I shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Of course,
Hmm.
you wish you would have seen something. You should have been there. Should have listened at something. But it's hard to do when there's nothing. There's no sign.
Right, right, right. So did he go to the same school that you did, or was he older, already out?
He was already out. He was in the beginning stages of college, and I was in a senior year in high school.
Okay, okay. Wow. I just can't, well, I can because I went through it, but I was already in my 20s. But I can't imagine having that happen to me, at that age that you were at, and then having to wrap my head around it.
Right, right. No, it's just like a completely foreign concept. We had heard something later that at night school, one of the teachers, the word got back to us somehow through, I think, one of Bruce's friends, and nobody really talked about it, but they said something about it. He had inquired about suicide or something. So whether it was the ideation or just uh, we don't know what, and it never went anywhere. We never really found any answers further to that. No one, no one would say anything, so maybe there was a bit of information out there that could have saved them.
Sure, sure, sure. Did you have? Did you? Because of course you want to know what happened. So was there any kind of investigation with the police or anything,
No,
involved with this?
no, nothing like that. It's just, no, I think my parents just wanted this over as quickly as possible to move on, try and move on with their lives. Um, because, yeah, you just don't know. Was there
Right.
foul play? Was somebody else there? Who knows? It, and would it bring them back anyhow? No. So,
True. That's true. I know I've talked to people that have attempted suicide off the Golden Gate Bridge in the past, and they immediately, I get the same story every time. The second they let go of that rail, when they go
they
over, they
regretted it.
immediately regret it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The-
I
You know,
have
they
heard
made,
that time and time again as well.
but like with a shotgun or even a hanging, it happened so fast.
Yeah.
You're just like that. You're gone.
Right. And we had wondered that ourselves, whether at that particular instant there was a change of heart and it was too
Hmm.
late, or change of mind and it was too late. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Just don't know.
You're forever gonna wonder that.
Yep.
So, as you grew up, as you like you say, the kids, were pointed the whispers in the hallways and stuff. What else did you go? Because you had all those high school years yet to go. Like 2 years left in high school. So,
Well, no, I was a senior in high school, so it was
okay,
my
okay,
last year.
okay.
And then I went to Temple University for 2 years until I got thrown out. Um, that's a whole other story. And then I got reinstated, and my parents said, "This school's too big for you." And I wound up going to Oglethorpe College in Atlanta, which had about 1,200 kids, and it was great. And I took that haunt with me, but I just kind of shoved it to the back of my mind and created a scenario where I sort of made myself believe that Bruce was in Vietnam and on a spec ops issue, on a mission that and that's um, obviously not real, but it was a way for me to insulate myself from the pain. And I wound up on the Spanish Honor Society, on the Dean's List. The 2 years, I really realized I had to make something of myself for myself and for my parents as well. And I did. But when I came back after I graduated, all the realities start to come back. You move home and all these memories come back. And that's when I started to kind of have out of body experiences, not in a good way. I mean, they would just come on randomly where I would just feel myself leaving my body. And, it's this feeling unreal, as I used to call it. And it was frightening. I didn't do drugs. And this was something that sounded like an LSD thing, but without the drugs. So, and that's when I finally got help. And it took a while, but I realized by suppressing all my feelings, I was literally leaving my body and not dealing with it.
Now, when you say out of body experiences, usually the people that have them, because I do paranormal work, it's usually at night just before you fall asleep, or just before they fall asleep. What was happening to you?
That was a different. I've had those too, but that's different with time travel and all that stuff. But this was just random, where they would come on, and the anxiety would be so intense that I would just feel like I wasn't even in my body anymore, and I just the sounds were different. I felt like I was looking through a television from the inside out.
Hmm, that's
Very weird.
interesting. That
Very
is
weird. Not
weird.
not a good feeling.
I know people have dreams like that, but I've never heard that for an out of body experience.
I've had flying dreams and dreams like that too, but much better.
Wow.
This was like uncontrollable.
And
So
what would you
until
see during these experiences? I mean,
I
where
would
would you
just,
go?
I don't know, I'd be outside of myself, but I would still be inside myself as well. It's very weird. I just, my hearing and my vision would kind of contract, and I just felt like I wasn't real.
Okay.
It's hard
Yeah,
to explain,
I would think
but
that would be stress, something stress related,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
anxiety or something
definitely,
like that. Yeah.
yeah.
So then you decided to seek help at that point, and what happened when you went to get the help about it, and you were telling people about it.
Well, it took a while, for me to settle into a routine, 4 days a week or 5 days a week, or however many years. And I knew, because I could see myself getting better. And the doctor said we have to get to the core of all these issues and
Hmm.
unravel this ball of anxiety, a thread at a time, and then kind of rebuild, which is what we did. I didn't tell too many people I was going for therapy, because in at that point in time, in the early '70s, it was still um, something that was like, oh, you must be really sick, if you're going to a psychiatrist.
Right.
Um, but that's how you get well.
Yeah, it's a lot different now, I think, because there's a lot of trauma specialists out there that people can go to. I had a
Absolutely.
friend who lost her son to an accident with a gun, but it's a similar thing where his sister was there with him at the time, but
Mhm.
he had two younger siblings, and they're still having a lot of issues dealing with it. And it's been like 2-3 years later. They're all in their teens, and so they're seeing trauma specialists, and all this is going on too. And then I think that's what people need, and I think like you say, people don't realize that they need it. They think they can just push on from it, and get on with their lives, but it's not like that.
No, you can't be heroic or stoic about something like this. It's self-defeating. And, we all tried it, of course,
Hmm.
and all failed. It's just too big an issue and too complex, you have to try and undertake on your own.
I know I didn't tell anybody anything either. Yeah, so I I'm a person that's a push on regardless kind of person. So that's why, like I said in the intro, even today I have issues, where I'm thinking about him, or I'll dream about him, or something will come up, and it'll automatically just switch on the tears or whatever with him.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's normal. I mean, there are a lot of triggers out there, and for years, when the anniversary of his death would come around,
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of stay strong and tough, and not feel it and block it out. Well, you wind up with a headache, or you wind up with stomach problems, or you wind up feeling dizzy. You're going to pay for it one way or another, because your emotions are going to say, hey pal, this happened, it's real, and we're going to make you feel it. And for years, my wife would say, every year you deny this, you avoid it, you suppress it. And, it's ugly. You don't want to face it. But
Mm-hmm.
until the tears come and you feel your feelings, you get walloped with all kinds of symptoms.
Absolutely. So you got counseling, and then your father passes away.
Right.
So what happened?
He passed away while I was in therapy,
Okay.
and fortunately, I still had some therapy left to do, and of course, that was a whole separate topic. But I was grateful that I was where I was at the time in my therapy, because it was a tremendous help. I mean, again, an issue that was like, we were really close. I mean, our family was extremely close. So, and my father was my hero. He was my mentor. He was everything.
And then you took over the business, but you were already involved in the business, right? At
I
that
was
point.
involved only for 3 years when my dad passed away.
Okay.
So I was kind of new at it. And that's when my brother said he would stay for 9 months, and he was leaving. He was burned out. He had been there. He went to Wharton. He was a stockbroker. But he had it. He wanted to go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
But he stayed longer, thankfully. And we're very close to this day.
Well, it's good to have a close family, though. It's really good to be close.
It is.
What do you think? Looking back, and I know you probably hear this all the time, and a question wise is that you could have maybe done. Like I said, the shoulda, woulda, coulda. We're gonna play that game for a second. What do you think, looking back, that you could have maybe watched out for?
Um, Today I'm much more attuned to it. If I were to go back today, I would look for something subtle. I would have more communication and talk and say, hey, what's going on? I know you're at night school. Are you okay with this? This was a kid who could take a car apart and put it back together again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Me, I'd have a fire in the carburetor or something. But he could anything. I mean, his mechanical skills were phenomenal. My father was going to set up a frame shop on the fourth floor of the gallery for him, making frames, which was an integral part of our business.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I didn't get that far. But so knowing what I know today, I would try and pry something out of him and say, hey, what's going on? Tell me your worst day. Tell me your worst demons. What's in your head? What scares the hell out of you? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what? Just talk, because I think
I
talking is critical.
I know the similar thing happened with my cousins was that she would, because they were living, I think they had at one point moved down Southern California, then moved back up to Oregon. So they would talk to him on the phone, and every time they talked to him, well, what did he say? Oh, everything's fine. It's all cool. It's all good. They had no idea that he had been fired from his job. And he was going through a low point. So I think communication is a lot of it. But I mean, not every family has the communication. And again, people that are having, I don't want to say mental issues, but people like that are good actors. They're good
They
at
hide it
hiding it.
well. Yeah,
Yeah, they hide it really well.
yeah. And
So,
sometimes it's just a compensation for something they're ashamed of.
mm-hmm.
Like your cousin lost a job.
Yeah,
But that's nothing to be ashamed of. But in their mind, it's big. It shows
yes.
failure. It shows, I don't know, something that they're going to get criticized or judged for. And that's it's a shame that people feel that way.
Well, that's something I always felt too, because when you look at when you look at that, what happened on the face of it, he had lost his job. The other cousin said, "Okay, don't worry about it. I'll take you to Sears and buy you clothes."
Yeah.
And to me, God forbid they get mad at me for talking about this, but for me, that would be the ultimate slap in the face if he's feeling that way.
Right. Might be demeaning.
Yeah, and that's why he probably went in and pulled that trigger. It's nobody's fault. It's just
No.
circumstances.
Right. Exactly.
Behind it. So how did your mother get through all this too? I mean, we talked about you, but what about your mother?
We had a lot of friends and a lot of family near us, which was hugely helpful. And my mom had just gotten out of the hospital, so when she healed, and bad enough losing a son, that was
Mm-hmm.
horrible. And we all banded together to help her because we knew nobody really talked about it in the house because it was like the elephant in the room. And then we all started to talk about it because we realized, Alan and I knew what our parents were going through, and
Mm-hmm.
they knew what we were going through. And everybody was kind of walking on eggshells and being very careful and very, very kind and um, close and supportive and emotional, but it gets to a point where everybody has to start living their own life. And my mom was amazing. The strength was incredible. So we all literally pulled together and tried to work our way through this as best we could. And after my dad passed away, my mother would tell my brother and myself, she's lost the will to live. She doesn't want to live anymore. And Alan and I looked at each other and said, and I was married at that point, so Alan and I and Alan were just like, hey, we gotta get her through this. We can't. This is not tolerable. We have to help her. And we all hung around, and we said, Mom, we really need you. You can't give up now.
Mm-hmm.
We need you. We need you at work. We need you in our personal lives. We need you emotionally, and you can't check out. It's just. And so we threw a little guilt at her, but it worked. I mean, because it was really true. Everything we said was absolutely um, sound advice, and it was truthful. It was honest.
Well, it's like you say. People don't realize what a ripple effect it has. It's not only the person committing suicide. It's the immediate family members, the cousins. Like you were saying. I mean, it's a ripple effect that can go on for years and years and years.
And it's not something they do alone. They take their family and friends with them. A little piece, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's and it's not a selfish act
Right.
because people in this who do this 9 times out of 10 don't realize what they're doing or feel in such a state of darkness that they can't escape it. So you can't blame them. Um, you just hope and you wish that they would be open enough to say something, so your little glimmer of light would get in there, and you could get them help.
And then, like I know from covering crimes in courts, there are people that do leave notes, because they are asking for help. But again, like in your brother's case or my cousin's case, there was nothing, and it's just hard to wrap your head around.
It is indeed. Sometimes you'll see signs where someone will drop out of their social life or they'll become reclusive. They'll give away their possessions, and their whole interest in anything they had just evaporates, and they just go into a reclusive state. And those are little things that are signs and hints. And people have asked me, what do you do if you see something like that with a loved one
Mm-hmm.
or a friend or something? I said, you try and talk to them, reach out to them. If they shut down, call their family members. And if they don't help, call 911, get some help for them. And, if they're talking about killing themselves and a lot of people, I'm going to kill myself. A lot of people say that, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't say it with sincerity. And the worst you can do is be a little overzealous and embarrass somebody. But the best thing you can do is save a life.
When you talk about signs, like you spoke about those, are there any other signs people should look out for?
Um, well, suicide is often precipitated with depression. So if you see somebody literally dropping out of society, or they're in the group of friends that you're in, or family member, they start giving away their possessions, and nothing means anything to them anymore. Those are subtle, but they're not so subtle. They have a deeper meaning, and it's something people should be aware of. If they see someone doing that, that's a loved one or a friend who suddenly has a change of heart and shows signs of like just kind of dropping out. It's something you need to pay attention to.
You say it took you 10 years plus to write this book. What has been the audience response to this that you've gotten? How do people feel about it?
People have told me they love it, that they were very grateful to have read it, felt very privileged to have known my family, um, and grateful. And you know what? I've done interviews that I get responses to, and I get emails. People say, "Thank you so much. I was really in a state of depression, and now I'm really going to try and go seek some help." And knowing what you went through, what it causes your family and friends, when someone does that, it gives pause sometimes to someone who is thinking about it, but not really that serious, but
Mm-hmm.
could be. So, I've gotten emails, I've gotten thank yous, I've gotten great responses to it, which for me is everything in the world. I always say I feel like Schindler. I could have saved one more life. I may never know if I have or I haven't, but I've
Mm-hmm.
thrown the rock out on the water, the pebble, and it's skimming along, creating its own waves. And that's pretty much the best I can hope for.
When you talk about getting messages and emails, do they open up to you? In these messages, like you say, you're not a professional counselor, but obviously they're going to open up to you because of your experiences.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's just a thank you. Sometimes it's, I had a sister, I had a brother who committed
Mm-hmm.
suicide, and now I know that there's help out there. If you got through it, I hope I'll be able to get through it, and thanking me for sharing my story and the guidance, because that way they know that they're not alone. They're not the only ones in the world who've gone through this, even though it seems like it when you're going through it. There are more than 1 million people a year worldwide take their life, and that's a crazy epidemic statistic. In America alone, almost 50,000 people a year take their life, which is like it's almost incomprehensible. 3 times the amount of suicides than there are homicides in America, and it's like the 10th largest um, cause of death in our country. And strangely enough, with the pandemic and all the isolation and lockdowns and everything else, even though you hear about a lot more suicides, the
Mm-hmm.
rate actually went down from about 48,000 down to about 44,000, um, which is kind of inexplicable. We're not sure why. Maybe because people had more connection by Zoom things and by
Right.
phone, and they were more gathered as families together rather than being out there in the open world separated. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a good point. I would have thought that the people that were more alone would be more prone to
Yep.
hit that depression level, and the suicides would go up. But that's an interesting stat. What do you say to people who might even be contemplating suicide?
Um, please don't do it. Think about it. Get some help. Talk to somebody. Your problems, which seem so insurmountable, could very well be just temporary. And suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. There's a lot of help out there today. There are suicide hotlines. There's 911. There's bartenders. There's hair salons. Anybody. I mean, go talk to somebody, because as horrible as you think your life is, somebody else has it worse. And that's not to minimize someone's problems, but it is just to let them know that life goes on, and there is help out there today. Lots of help.
And for families, like we talked about earlier, what's out there for families? I mean, families that are affected by this. How's that?
Same same thing. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
there's help. They're not alone. More people than they could even imagine have gone through this. That's not to standardize it by any means, or to justify it, because it's horrible. I mean, it's a parent's worst nightmare, and it's just one of those things that is just it's mind blowing. But as I said, there is help out there. People are not alone. And in today's world, there's much more of an emotional support system than there used to be, decades and decades ago.
Now you mentioned in a quote I saw from another show that you had been on, that once you got married and had children, you really started to kind of get a grip on what your mom and dad had gone through at the time.
Yeah. When you have kids, you realize, like, what if, God forbid. And when our kids we weren't sure how to tell our kids and exactly at what time about my brother. So when we felt that they were old enough to understand, but not get freaked out, We
Mm-hmm.
kind of explained it as gently as we could because we wanted them to know that no matter what happens to them in this world, no matter what they do, we're there for them. We're their parents. We love them unconditionally. And that this is never, ever an option. There's always a better answer. That's, we had to stress that point to make sure, as insurance for us as well as for them, that they know there's an avenue to get help, to talk to someone, that their emotions are acceptable and they need to be vented.
That's really cool. That's really good. That's really good. So, at what age did you tell your kids about what had happened? Because, like you say, you were trying to decide when you were going to tell them.
I think when they were about 13, 12, 13, or 14, when we thought they were old enough to comprehend and smart enough to understand the ramifications of how that shatters a family. And because we were all very close as well. And just to prevent something like this from happening, they needed to know.
Did you share the bed? No, you didn't because he was already in college. I'm sorry. My mind.
It's okay.
Was he coming? I mean, was he still living at the house when he was going to college, or was he living away?
No, at home.
Okay.
He was at home
Okay.
with us.
Okay. So did you
In fact,
guys share a room? Did he have his own room, or how did
no,
that work?
Bruce and I shared a room together.
Okay.
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry. He had his own room. Alan and I
Okay.
shared a room together. My eldest brother
Okay.
and I.
Okay. Okay. So, like you say, you didn't notice anything when he was home at all.
Nothing.
That he was having issues.
No. His army unit was supposed to go to Vietnam. We wondered if that's what did it because the television's broadcasting kids coming back in body bags and limbless
Mm-hmm.
and, but we still don't know. I mean, it's just could have been a contributing factor. It might have been something else altogether.
Understood. Completely understand. Um, do you think now, like we were talking about, how the awareness for suicide prevention is a lot better than it was back in the 70s? How much do you think that there's been improvements with that?
I think there's been tremendous improvement compared to where it was when I was growing up. The awareness is there, the education is there. One of my goals for my book was to, and I'll still try and do it. I don't know if I'll be able to, but to have it in every middle school and high school in America and in
Mm-hmm.
colleges to be mandatory reading, so that people would see what happens to a family and how a family gets shattered and how they have to battle their journey every day to pull back together to get back into the light from the darkness. And it's still one of my goals. I would love for this thing to be in libraries all over the country and all over the world. So because I know it would help people.
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
not a matter of money. It's just a matter of paying it forward.
Do you think that looking forward, like you say, like looking forward in the future, that because you're doing shows like this, are you doing lectures too?
I have done them, not lately,
Mm-hmm.
um, but most often it's either radio, television, or journal interview, and I think there's a wider audience for that. That I can reach more people by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Lectures are more localized. I mean, if someone asked me to do one,
Mm-hmm.
sure, I would do it. But I think the media is a broader way of getting the message out there.
Okay. Now you say your family backed you, for writing this book. Did you speak to any counselors or anything before you wrote the book?
No, I mean, I had gone through my own analysis, but no, this was all self-taught, if you will.
Okay.
And I just, I just did it.
As a journalist, I've got a couple books in the works, and I can tell you guys out on Radio Land how difficult it is to even write a book, because a journalist is trained to write small paragraphs. And with a book, you have to write these long paragraphs, and it's agonizing for me. It takes forever because I feel like I'm having all these run-ons and everything because I'm trying to expand these ideas in these huge paragraphs. So it's not an easy task to write a book, you know.
No,
Um,
it's not. It's not. It's an epic endeavor. I've written 3 books.
oh yeah.
Okay, my first book was Collecting and Care of Fine Art,
Uh-huh.
which I wrote. My brother and I used to give in the gallery collector seminars. And I decided one day to write the book because I wanted the truth to be out there. There was so much hype about investing in art that half these things weren't true and the other
Mm-hmm.
half were true. So I wrote this book and Crown published it for me in New York in 1981. And that was my first foray into really writing a book. And it was great. It sold out And then I wrote this book, Baderfield, which is really Baderfield, How My Family Survived Suicide, which is really my heart. This is the one that means the most to me. The art books are kind of documentary, if they will,
Right.
but the story of what we went through is way more important to me. And again, it's not about money; it's about principle and about emotions and survival. So
Right.
then I wrote this book, and after I wrote Baderfield, I had another book inside me that I knew I had to wait. You'll like this. It's called Waking Dreams: The Subtle Reality, and it's about
Um,
episodes of synchronicity and signs that I've had from the universe over the years. That when you die, your spirit lives on. I mean, this is just we're in this dimension now, but life goes on in a different form. And I had to wait years before I could put that out because I knew people would think I had three heads, and I
mhm.
and I might lose credibility for the Baderfield book and the art book.
So
But
when is
I
that
did
one
it.
coming out? When is that one
I'm
coming out?
sorry.
When's that book coming out, or is it out
It's
already?
out. It's
Okay,
out.
I
I
didn't see it
have to.
on.
I
I
just
must
bought the
have
right.
missed it.
I just bought the rights back to it, so I have to have it put back up on Amazon and
Okay.
where it is. So that's another job I have to do.
Well, when that one comes out, when you get it back up, we're gonna have to get you on again and talk about it.
Okay. Okay.
Talk about those experiences. You know, like we talked about the people that jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. You know how they immediately regret it. And I know I did some research back when I was working for a newspaper, and I was talking to a couple of college professors and stuff, and we were talking about head-on when people do head-on collisions and how they feel a lot. The majority of those are suicides. Um, that was a shock to me, because I was just you don't think about that, but
Right.
that's what they had told me. And like I said, it just boggles the mind that somebody could get that mindset to even do that. To go zinging
Right.
across a road or a freeway or something to do that.
I guess someone's got to be in that state of I've had it. That's it. I'm done, and they just do it. I mean, it doesn't seem well. It's not rational. I mean, so it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem rational to us, but it's incongruous to the way we think.
Now, jumping back a little bit, your father. What kind of personality did your father have?
He was amazing. He was a dynamo. If he was my role model and always told me you can do whatever you want in life. If you think it, you can create it. You have to work for it, but you can set your goals as high as you want and you'll get there, but you have to work for it. I mean, he was incredible. I mean, he never stopped for a minute. And when he'd walk into a room, the room would light up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
literally, people would just gravitate toward him. He was a generous, kind, listening dynamo. I mean, he was just I was blessed to have him, even though it was only, 58 when he passed away. I
Mm-hmm.
was grateful for the years that I had with him because they were gold.
And what happened after your brother committed suicide? What happened with him? Did his personality change, or did he just, buckle down and just
No, it did
keep
change.
everything going?
I remember the first time I was back in the gallery and he came in. He came in that morning wearing sunglasses and this just slammed the door. The whole building shook. He was so filled with rage and anger, and that was the place where he found him up on the fourth floor. And I don't know how he did it. I mean, to this
Mm-hmm.
day, I just, I know, I don't know how he did it. And it took a long time for the smile to come back, but after a while, it took a few years. And you could see his personality coming through, but it was still tinged with this scar,
Mm-hmm.
and the pain. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you don't get over it, it's just, and I think he felt more responsible than anybody that he should have seen something. And, finding him on the fourth floor is just, that's a memory that you can never erase.
No, because you're forever going to see him that way.
Right.
That's one thing with the paranormal investigating that I do when the psych. I don't know how you believe in that stuff, but when the psychics go in and they talk with the families and stuff, and you realize that some of these families still have visions of them like they were when they were killed or when they died.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when at my dad's funeral, um, at the funeral parlor before the ceremony, um, we could go in and see him, and I opted not to because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to remember him in life, not laying in a coffin.
Right.
And
Because that does etch in your memory.
yeah, yeah. It was not something I wanted to remember that way.
Right. I understand completely. Um, what about your brother? How did he do it? How did he cope?
Same way, he went for help and worked it out as best he could on his end. We still to this day we talk about Bruce and his personality and he was a real people person too. He's incredible. Just with the fast cars and the Marlboro cigarettes rolled up under his t-shirt, and uh, typical kid from the 60s, early 60s anyhow. And it's just he was a real character. He's a funny guy. Um, I had gotten in trouble a couple of times, and he was right there for me, in a rescue position. So he too was my hero. We were really close. Kids do
That's
stupid stuff, and then somebody rescues them.
that's really cool. That's really cool. Well, I'm so sorry for your loss and the loss of your
Thank you,
brother and your father. I
thank you,
really am. And
thank you,
like I said,
and I'm
I
sorry.
completely understand.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for your losses as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add to any of this? I think we've covered just about everything. Is there anything I
Yeah,
missed?
I think you got it all. I mean, my only message is if anyone is in emotional stress, please go talk to somebody. Don't give up. Don't quit. There are people out there who can help you. You're not alone for sure, and you're loved. And suicide is not an option. I mean, it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Um, you got a life to live. It's a gift. Every day you get up is a gift, and you can't abuse that gift. You have to live your life to the fullest because whatever happens today, there's always tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, Carl, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on. And
Thank you,
when
Charlotte.
you
My
get your other
pleasure.
book set up, I would love to have you on again to talk about that as well.
I will be
Those
in touch as soon as
experiences,
it's back up and running.
Sounds great. But thank you so much for telling your story. And I'm actually going to order your book because I would like to read
No,
it. Cause I
thank
think
you.
it'll be helpful for me as well. But you have a good evening. And
Thanks.
again, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. You as well.
All right.
Thank you so much
You
for
have a
having
good
me.
day. All
Thanks,
right.
Charlotte. You too.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Well, that was Carl David, and he had a story to tell, similar to something that happened to me in my 20s. But it is sad. It is sad when suicide occurs, because it does have that ripple effect. Anyhow, we'll be back to paranormal stuff on Monday. We'll be back at the same time, 6:30 p.m. and Pacific time. And it was great you guys came and joined us for the show. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate Carl coming on. And hopefully, again, he will come on again. If you feel the need, you can donate to our PayPal me down there to help me keep this thing up and running so we can get more and more interesting guests and get our technology up even better. If you liked the show, share it with 5 people. If you didn't like the show, share it with 5 people anyway, because I'm trying to build up the following on this as much as I possibly can so that we can get some advertisers and get some other things going on. We do have a Patreon that I'm going to start running the link down at the bottom of the page starting Monday, and you guys can join for $5 level. There's a $20 level, and then there's a $40 level which is kind of cool, where you get all kinds of goodies. Plus, like this gentleman has a book out, and most of the people we have on have books out. So you can join at that level, and once a month you can pick out the book of your choice, and I will order it from Amazon for you. So that's kind of a cool deal. But some of these shows will be up on Patreon, and some of the pre-recorded shows that we do will air early, kind of like Discovery Plus, right? Everything will air like 2, 3, 4 days early before they actually air on YouTube. So you get the opportunity to do that, and there will be one-on-ones with me where you can ask me about anything you want, and that kind of stuff going on. So check out the Patreon, and like I said, I'll have a link up to that because we're ready to go with that. Anyhow, I will see you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend, and let me get ready to close this out here. Push the right buttons. Okay, I will see you guys on Monday. Bye.